Hi, it's Paul from Handcherbable with my top 10 vegan protein sources. I think it's worth prefacing this with a couple of sentences about the difference in quality between plant and animal protein. There is none. Anyone claiming such is regurgitating misinformation from the February 75 issue of Vogue magazine. The fact is that all plant foods contain the full spectrum of amino acids. There is no need to protein combine at each meal to ensure adequate levels of each amino acid. Our bodies store pools of free aminos. The reason I choose to get my protein purely from plants is that food is a package deal. Plant protein comes with a list of positives as long as your arm, whilst animal protein comes with a stunning array of negatives. With that said, on with the video. My top choice is legumes. These are types of vegetables that come in pods and include lentils, chickpeas, split peas, and a myriad of different beans. Not only are they highly protein rich, but their consumption is associated with longevity. One large study found that for every 20 grams consumed daily, that's just 2 tablespoons, people had an 8% decrease in the likelihood of an early death. Looking at the protein quantity of ones I typically consume, per can lentils have 21.6 grams of protein, kidney beans 19.2, chickpeas 16.9, and butter beans 15 grams. You can eat them whole, make them into falafels or burgers, make them into dips and pastes such as hummus and refried beans. Or you can use gram flour, which is made from chickpeas, to make omelettes, baked onion rings, and pakora. I will link some recipe videos in the description box. Some people even grind white beans into their morning oatmeal or throw into smoothies. They taste pretty neutral, so why not? I typically use the canned version, although the lining from cans can be toxic. I think that they're so healthful, I don't worry too much. You can buy them dried, of course, which will likely save a little money, although it takes more time for cooking. Quinoa is the highest protein grain that I'm aware of. If you know better, do comment down below. I was really shocked the first time I cooked this. I read the label to see how much to cook for my carb needs, which came out to 200 grams. And to my amazement, I had 28 grams of protein right there before I even considered adding in other foods. It's a huge staple for me. I generally have 2 servings a day. You simply simmer it for about 12 minutes, 1 part quinoa to 3 parts water. For health reasons, once the water's evaporated, I typically add in 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric and a pinch of black pepper and cook for a further minute. You can flavour with herbs and spices of your choice. A really nice addition is half a lemon or lime cooked in, and then at the end you grab a tea towel, squeeze out the flesh, stir that in, you've got a citrus quinoa. My second best performing video is a quinoa and chickpea recipe video that I did a few years back. Again, I'll link that down below. Now protein powder. A well-balanced, whole foods, plant-based diet that supplied sufficient calories would supply more than enough protein for the masses. However, for a larger strength athlete or someone eating restricted calories on a cut, the judicious use of a little high-quality protein powder could be a benefit. Having tried them all, I've come to the conclusion that Vivo Life's Perform Protein Powder is by far the best on the market. One of only about 3 brands to not test positive for heavy metal contamination. It's highly digestible and absorbable, with top quality ingredients and no nasty additives.
I was delighted and impressed. So impressed, I bought the company.
Well, I became a brand ambassador. You can get 10% off with my discount code using the link in the description. Next, tofu. 12 grams of protein per 100 grams cooked weight. It's basically a big block of processed soybeans. The fact that it's processed means that you lose about half the minerals, but on the scale of things, if it's just the usual tofu and not a cutlet with additives such as oil, etc., I don't see it as anything too unhealthy. It needs to be well seasoned and cooked right, else you end up with a plate of mushy, tasteless nonsense. Before cooking, press well with a tea towel to get out the majority of the water. A lot of people chop it into little squares and fry. Don't do that though, it's really unhealthy, creating lots of oxygen-free radicals and advanced glycation end products that cause disease. My preference is to scramble, as you would eggs, adding in veggies and spices, particularly turmeric. Some people add in black salt, as the sulfur gives a very eggy smell and taste, but that's just gross, and those people are crazy! Now, tempeh. 20 grams of protein per 100 grams. Think of it as a healthier version of tofu. It still comes in a block, but rather than being highly processed, it is actually made of whole soybeans bound together by healthy bacteria. It has a very mild, slightly odd flavour that some people may find takes a bit of getting used to. But again, like tofu, the magic is in the marinade. Season well and you can end up with something really delicious. I like to bake in the oven and serve on top of steam-fried vegetables. Nuts and their butters. In the interests of getting adequate essential fatty acids, all of us need to be eating nuts and or seeds and their butters, particularly flax and chia seeds for their high omega-3 count. These vary wildly with protein concentrations. Per 100 grams, flax seeds have 18 grams, chia 17, walnuts 15, hemp hearts have a whopping 30 grams, while macadamia nuts have a lowly 8. Get out of here, macadamia nuts, you're not wanted! It's worth noting that flax and chia need to be ground prior to consumption or you miss out on all the omega-3. I sprinkle them on top of porridge, use them in baking as a binder, or throw them into a smoothie. They're all very high in fat, so on the grounds of good health, I advise to not go overboard with them. Oats. I was really surprised to find that the thing I have every morning with my breakfast has 13.2 grams of protein per 100 grams. That is huge. On a bulk, I'll make them into a fruit smoothie because it's easier to drink your calories. On a cut, I'll make them into porridge so I feel more satiated. Just 100 grams of oats with 1 pint of soya milk would give you 30 grams of protein. As I said, you can add other high protein foods such as nuts and seeds, or if you're a hard trainer and you feel that you'd benefit from a larger amount of protein, then a scoop of protein powder can go in here too. Relatively new on the scene, bean and lentil pastas. Typically around 25 grams of protein per 100 grams dry weight. I'm a big fan of Tesco red lentil fusilli, has a really nice bite to it. I've tried others by company Explore Asia. They do black bean, edamame bean, mung bean, aduki bean among others, but sadly I found the texture too rubbery to be enjoyable. Nutritional yeast. Over half the weight is protein, 53 grams per 100 grams. If you're vegan and you don't know what nutritional yeast is, well, you better just hand in your vegan card, is all I can say. Some people call this vegan crack. These small flakes are inactive yeast, which sounds gross. Just think of it as single-celled mushrooms, if that helps. They have a delicious, nutty, cheesy flavour and are extremely high in B vitamins. Many people are under the misapprehension that it naturally contains B12. The fact is that simply many brands fortify with B12. It can be used as you would parmesan or added into savoury dishes to intensify flavour, and is widely used in the manufacture of vegan cheeses and cheese sauces. And my last pick, a bit of an unusual one, spirulina. This is a blue-green microalgae. It's one of the oldest life forms on the face of the planet. It would have been partly responsible for producing the oxygen which allowed the first plants and animals to start developing. While the recommended 1 to 2 teaspoon serving per day probably won't add much to the percentage of protein in your diet, it's worth noting for its whopping 66 grams of protein per 100 grams, the most protein of any food on the planet. It may be the most nutrient dense too, with a dizzying array of vitamins, minerals and phytochemicals. YouTube reckons you'll watch this next.